Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. All right. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. All right. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Okay, so I know that my audio is good now. We'll jump into it. So for those of you who know me, you know I've been into psychology and the social workspace for a number of years now. I've worked at a foster care agency down in Miami, Florida. I saw a lot of things that were going on that it really didn't seem that there were programs and services in place to really help those situations. I saw some of the same things happening to those who I was serving over. Same things that were happening to some of my peers whenever I was a teenager. So I really started to look at how the system was designed and how certain programs were really designed only to bandage certain issues, to tackle it at a certain age, but only tackle it at that age and then have to come along and do the same thing for the next generation, tackle that same problem, and then just continue to cycle and cycle and cycle. And ultimately, when it comes to mission and vision statements, if your vision becomes a reality when you're working in the social services place or the social services space, it's going to put you out of work. If you get to a point where your people are self-sufficient and no longer need your services, it's going to put you out of work. And that's something that it's a reality across various different spaces, specifically in the helping professions. Now, during that time, I realized that a lot of the problems that we were facing, they were rooted into financial issues. Whereas homelessness, if people had enough money, they wouldn't be homeless most of the time. People who are depending on government assistance for food, if they had the enough funding, enough money, they wouldn't need the government assistance for food, so on and so forth. Yes, there are many variables that can cause it not to be the issue. So I don't want it to sound like a generality, but at the end of the day, ultimately, if everyone has financial education enough to know and to discipline themselves to spend in the right types of ways, to save in the right types of ways, and to start to invest and help position their money to help them make money, then a lot of the problems that we face in the social services spaces would become extinct, so to say. So over the last few years, I've gotten myself involved in the financial education space. For those of you who don't know, dating back to 2016, I started to do research in the financial education space. So I started to do focus groups, I started to do interviews, so on and so forth, getting information from the community, various different sectors of the community on what they feel is missing when it comes to financial education. I helped the University of Southern Miss and a specific organization there to put together a financial master plan for the city of Hattiesburg back in 2016, 2017. Um, Unfortunately, that was right around the time that the administration and the city government was about to change over. So I don't think much was or much became of that specific plan. But it got me into the conversation, to the space of understanding. I really need to focus on this financial education thing because there's so much that individuals, specifically across the South, so much that we grow up not knowing. We grow up not having any type of conversation around, specifically the two second relationships with money plus understanding credit. So the second two relationships with money or how to save and how to grow. So having proper savings accounts, the proper number of savings accounts, the proper types of savings accounts, understanding how much interest you can earn compared to how much inflation is eating away at your money if it's just sitting there, understanding how to put that money in certain places to where it can grow over time, how it can grow at more rapid rates depending on where you put it. All of that information I wasn't given when I was coming up. So I said, you know what? I'm going to position myself to give that information to as many people as I can so that maybe they don't run into the same road bumps that I ran into as I was going through my early adult years. So I posted maybe 2 days ago on Facebook. So for those of you who are watching on YouTube, feel free to go to my Facebook page, Brian A. Street or Brian Street, and just a picture of my face, a dark background. I think if you type it into the URL, it's facebook.com/bstreets20. So that's BSTREETS 20. Anyways, I put up a post and it was something along the lines of, did you know that paying your credit card bill on your due date may be damaging your credit score or something along those lines? Now, there were some people that came on um, and they debated it. Actually, that's not right. I pay on my due date, and my credit score keeps going up. Some people came along. I had no idea. Can you tell me more? Some people came along. Yep, I learned that the hard way. Some people came on. I'm so thankful that I learned that earlier, so I never really had an issue with it. But for those who really don't understand, for those who don't know how your credit score is calculated, for those who don't know how to really grow your credit and don't know how to keep it from taking dips, that's what I'm doing this live for. Now, excuse me, I'm going to share my screen. Let me make sure it's catching. Let's see. Okay, so as you see here, what we have here on the screen, how your credit score is calculated. We're going to focus on this one right here today. This is what we're focusing on today, but I'm going to go through each of these. Now, 35% of your score is calculated based off of payment history. So, have you been paying on time? Ultimately, I mean that one is as clear as day. You know if you make late payments. You know if you notoriously make late payments. You know if every so often you make late payments. You know if you know what this month I'm going to pay this on time, this on time, and this on time, and next month I'll pay those. You know what type of person you are. So 35%, that's the bulk. That's the largest percentage, at least, of your credit score is calculated based off of you making your payments on time. So really looking at the last 24 months, as you see here. So over the last 2 years, those are the ones that are going to impact you the most. And we'll skip over credit utilization because that's what we're going to spend most of our time on. Length of credit. For those of you who have student loans are probably the best types of credit debt to have on your credit report because they are a long lasting trade line, so to say, or a long lasting line of credit that is on your report. So, with it being such a long history, length of credit, that in that 15% of calculation, that's going to benefit you. Now, you don't want to have credit or a line of credit for a long period of time if you're not really taking care of it. So, if you're in default, if you don't ever pay your student loans, it's not going to help you, or it's not going to help you as much. Now, there's certain things to look at. Maybe you did pay it on time for X amount of months or years, but then something happened, i.e., the pandemic, and you wanted or you had to stop making payments. I know there's been forgiveness, various different plans in place that didn't allow you to be damaged, but let's say coming out of this, you still can't make those payments. You make a few late ones, you miss a few payments. There's ways to go in and get those missed payments removed from your credit report so that the length of that credit still reports positively to your score, but you're able to remove those negative months where you didn't pay or you paid late. You're able to remove that so that it doesn't bring your credit score down. We can go deeper into that in one-on-one if you want some more information, etc. 10% new inquiries. So the more times you apply for a credit card, line of credit, personal loan, whatever it may be, they're going to go and do an inquiry. They're going to check your report, see how much you qualify for, if you qualify, and too many of those inquiries can start to give you hits on your credit score. Now, I've heard between up to 4 is what you want to stay below. I heard up to 7 within a 30-day period you want to stay below. But the fewer, the better. If you're going, and there's ways to apply for multiple credit cards in one sitting so that you don't get multiple hits, even though you're looking for multiple lines of credit. More information about that reach out to me. And then ultimately the types of credit. You want to have a good mix. If you have student loans, don't let that be the only line of credit that you have. Make sure that you have an auto loan. You know, if you need it, if it's something that is actually going to be something like you need it, don't just go out and get an auto loan just for the heck of it. um, Housing loan. You want to have apartment rental history. There's so many different types of lines of credit that you want to have, but if you have a good mix, that reports 10% towards your credit score. Now, 30% credit utilization. This is the topic of the day. This is what we're here to talk about. Now, credit utilization is the percentage of credit that you have access to, so your credit limit compared to your balance that you have on that credit card or collectively across all of your trade lines, lines of credit, so on and so forth. You want to keep that. Well, I mean, it reports 30% to your credit score, but you also, to maintain good credit, you want to keep that 30% or lower. Once it goes over 30%, it's going to start to report as fair, poor, bad, so on and so forth. So you want to keep it 30% or lower. And there's ways that people think that they're keeping it to 30% where they're messing themselves up. Now, depending on who your credit card is through, when you apply for it, so on and so forth, your due date may land right before, or sometimes it may land after your actual statement date, or vice versa. I've seen it to where people's statement date landed before their due date, and sometimes their due date landed before their statement date. Now, most of us, to my knowledge at least, based off of where I'm from, we focus always on the due date. Make sure that you have whatever type of payment it is, make sure you make your payment by your due date. So most of the time we would wait until we get that that sent in the mail. Hold up, this screen has gone black on me. We'll wait till we get our statement in the mail. Hold up, I got to share the screen again. Share screen, share. All right, so I guess I gotta make sure the mouse stays active. So where was I? Where was I? So we wait until we get that statement in the mail. We wait until something happens where we get an email. Your due date is X date. Make sure you make a payment by this date to prevent from accruing late charges. So we wait until that day to make our payment, but we don't really look at or read our statement and realize that, okay, the statement date is, and we'll use an example. Today is the 24th, if I'm not mistaken. My statement date is the 25th, but my due date isn't until the 30th. Okay, so I got to the 30th to pay this bill. Whereas if we wait until the 30th, if we have a balance on that card that is above 30%, that balance above 30% is what's going to report to our credit if we wait to that due date. But if we pay and we get it below 30% on that below before that statement date, that's what's going to report to the bureau. So the statement date, whatever is on your balance during that time, at that time, that's what's going to report to the credit bureau and actually, show or calculate or be calculated into what your credit score is, what brings it down, what increases it, so on and so forth. Now, calculating 30%, I mean, it's basic math, but some people just don't really um, know how to make those calculations. So we'll just use a calculator. Simple math. You got $1,000 credit limit. If you want to know what 30% is of that $1,000 credit limit, you just multiply it times zero point 0.3 equals 300. So anything below $300 is what you want to spend or what you want to have left on that balance by the time your statement date comes. Not by the time your due date comes, unless your due date comes before your statement date, which you really want to look and check if that's the case. But you always want to make sure you're below that 30% mark if you want to keep good credit. I don't know, maybe you have a reason why, you know what, such and such trying to get me as a cosigner, but I don't want to be a cosigner. Let me show them my credit report and I don't have good credit. I've got just fair. So they don't want me as co-signer anymore. Good. I don't know. Maybe that's something that you want to do. It's a situation that you're in. But let's say you have, because sometimes people are like, well, yeah, that's simple math. I can't calculate that. My credit or my credit limit is completely different. So let's say your credit limit is 2850. That's more difficult math. I don't know how to do that in my head. Well, same thing. Times point 0.3 equals $855. So if your credit limit is 2850, $2,850, you don't want to spend no more than $855, or you don't want more than $855 on your balance when your statement date comes. So that's what I meant by you could be damaging your credit score by paying your credit card bill on your due date. Because if your due date falls after, if it falls after your statement date, whatever that balance is on that card at your statement date is what's being reported to the credit bureaus, and it's not what your balance is on the due date. So you really want to keep that in mind. Keep that in mind as you go through your financial life and you're trying to increase your credit score. Make sure that you're staying or you maintaining that 30% or below at your statement date. And there's some tools out there to really help you manage that as well. Look at your credit cards for one, and certain credit cards that they have a place to go on your online portal that shows you what percentage or what your utilization ratio is. But there's also cards out there like secured cards that you can use to be more hands-on with manipulating your credit utilization ratio. I can literally be at a 90% utilization today, and by tonight, I can change that to 0% simply by adding more to my credit limit within this day. It's approved almost automatically depending on the type of credit, secure credit card you're using. I have access to one that I've been able to play around with over the last couple of or last month or so, and see instant increases in my credit limit. And it's something that you can do it to a certain degree with your unsecured credit cards, but it takes longer for the process because third party has to get involved. Excuse me, they have to approve certain things after looking at a few things, and then you may be approved for a credit limit increase. And typically, those are only permitted once every 6 months or so. Whereas you can literally increase your credit limit any day at all. Period. Every single day of the month, if you want to, you can increase your credit score or your credit limit depending on what cards you're actually using. And I have one that I can give you access to that can help you do just that. So if you're needing to increase your or to decrease your credit utilization ratio, you're needing to increase or have more control over increasing your credit limit so that it reports to your credit score or credit report the way that you want it to. Reach out. We can have a conversation, see where you are, see where you're trying to get to, and see what tools we have available to help you get there. So that's all I got for you on this session. I'm gonna start doing these more often because it's been said that knowledge is power. Knowledge is only potential power. Because if you never do anything with that knowledge, what power are you exuding? You have the power within, but how is that power benefiting yourself or anyone else besides you sitting there knowing, okay, I know more than this person, I know more than that person. What are you doing with it though? So I want to be able to bring some of this knowledge that I'm acquiring to you guys. And anybody feel free to come on and critique or say, hey, you mentioned X, Y, and Z about building your credit in this way, about savings accounts, about high yield investments, but I know that to be kind of faulty. Please feel free to come in and challenge me because information changes day to day. The information I may have access to may have been outdated based off of the information that you have access to, just because of the specific source that I got it from, which hasn't been updated yet, or vice versa. So definitely feel free to to engage in the chat. Feel free to comment on this after the fact, and don't hesitate to reach out. Like I said, I've been doing research in the financial education space for a little over right at 6 years now, but I've been actively giving trainings, educating myself, and then passing that education on to others here over the last 2 years or so. So, with that being said, guys, like I said, don't hesitate to reach out, and I'm out. And y'all just remember, it don't matter where you start, no matter what happened before you, it don't matter what your last name was known for before today. It doesn't matter what your mom, dad, older brother, older sister, and uncle, what they did. Doesn't matter where you live. Doesn't matter what you currently listen to, what you rock out to, as far as TV. You can choose today to listen to the right things, to surround yourself with the right people, to get the right information and knowledge, so that you can start to live your life of purpose because your legacy begins now. Thank you guys for your time and attention. Don't hesitate to reach out. See you on the flip side. Peace.